There's something quietly radical happening between two women who, on paper, should probably never have become close at all. Think about it for a second. Really sit with it. Lala Kent and Amber Childers are not friends who met at a dinner party or bonded over a shared hobby. They are two women who loved the same man, trusted him, built lives around him, had children with him, and then watched that trust get dismantled in ways that left marks neither of them can fully hide. That's not a friendship origin story you write for television. That's something raw, something real. And that's exactly what makes it so fascinating to watch unfold. Because here's the thing about Randall Emmett as a shared chapter in both of their lives. He didn't just connect them. He became the wound that somehow brought them together to heal. Lala has been refreshingly, sometimes brutally, open about how her relationship with Randall ended. She didn't tiptoe around it. She didn't give vague non-answers on the Vanderpump reunion couch and change the subject. She said what she found out. She said what it did to her. And for anyone who watched her during those early seasons, this bright, bold, unapologetically herself woman who seemed almost invincible in her confidence, seeing her genuinely shaken was a different kind of television. Not dramatic in the manufactured Bravo way. Painful in the way that only real life can be. She and Randall have a daughter, Ocean, and Lala has been candid that co-parenting hasn't been smooth. There's no performative, we're doing great as a team, spin on it. She said it's hard. And that honesty matters because it gives you a window into the decision she made after, choosing to have her second child through a sperm donor, intentionally stepping outside of that dynamic entirely. That wasn't a random lifestyle choice. That was a woman who did the emotional math, weighed what co-parenting had cost her, and decided she wasn't willing to go through it again under those circumstances. You have to respect the self-awareness in that, even if it's quiet and understated in the way she frames it. Now enter Amber. Amber Childers was Randall's ex-wife long before Lala entered the picture. She lived a version of that chapter first. Whatever she knows, whatever she experienced, she held that privately for years while Lala was still inside the relationship, still defending it, still building something she believed in. And then when it all fell apart for Lala too, something shifted between them. A door opened that probably neither of them expected. Their friendship, because that's genuinely what it appears to be at its core, is the kind that develops when two people realize they've been through the same storm without knowing it. There's no performance in that. You don't need to explain your pain to someone who already understands the shape of it. But let's talk about what Lala actually said, because this is where the conversation got interesting and people's minds started moving in different directions. She admitted to kissing Amber on the lips. Not a peck-at-a-party ambiguity, she named it, acknowledged it, and then kept talking. But she was also clear, they haven't hooked up, and she doesn't anticipate that changing. What she did say, though, was that she finds Amber beautiful and attractive. And then she added something that's easy to breeze past if you're not paying close attention. This idea that when she was still drinking, there was something about that phase of her life that would have shifted things. That line is doing a lot of quiet work. Because what she's describing isn't just a physical boundary between them. She's drawing a map of who she used to be versus who she is now. The version of Lala who was drinking was a different kind of unguarded, louder in some ways, more reckless in others, but also maybe more emotionally available in that chaotic, unfiltered way that sobriety sometimes closes off. She's not saying she regrets getting sober. She's saying that the version of herself who existed in that drinking phase might have made different choices. That's a nuanced piece of self-reflection wrapped inside what could have been a throwaway comment. And Amber, for her part, exists in this story with a kind of dignified restraint. She's not a housewife. She doesn't have a confessional camera to offer competing context. She moves through this narrative largely on Lala's terms, and that creates an interesting power dynamic. Not a manipulative one, just an uneven one. We hear this story through one lens, which means we're only getting part of the emotional picture. Fans online have had a range of reactions, and honestly, none of them are surprising. Some people have leaned into the more sensational angle, treating any physical detail as confirmation of something larger, building entire theories out of one kiss and a compliment. That's the internet being the internet. But a more interesting segment of the audience seems genuinely moved by the friendship itself, independent of any romantic speculation. Two women who could have been enemies, who had every socially acceptable reason to resent each other, chose something different. That's not nothing. In a pop culture landscape that loves to pit women against each other over men, watching them sidestep that entirely and build something for themselves and their kids carries a specific kind of emotional weight. There's also something worth noting about how Lala is handling her own narrative right now in general. She's in a place, post-Randall, post-drinking, post a lot of things, where she seems to be actively choosing transparency over image management. She could easily have given a carefully neutral answer about Amber. Something diplomatic. Something designed to close the conversation rather than open it. Instead, she named the kiss, acknowledged the attraction, and drew her own line with calm confidence. That's not recklessness. That's someone who has done enough internal work to speak about complicated things without flinching. What it also does, and this is the part that's easy to miss, is it subtly reframes the whole Randall chapter. Because when Lala and Amber stand together, as co-parents to their respective children, as genuine friends, as two women who came out the other side of the same man's choices, they're not defined by him anymore. He becomes the footnote. They become the story. That's a reclamation that's been building quietly, and it's kind of remarkable to watch in real time. Do their children know each other? Are those kids growing up with a sense of extended family built from something their parents chose rather than inherited? That layer of this situation doesn't get talked about enough. Because if Lala and Amber have genuinely built something lasting here, it means Ocean and Amber's children have a connection to each other that exists outside of whatever Randall is or isn't doing as a father. That's the kind of thing that matters 20 years from now in ways we can't fully calculate yet. The question of whether their bond will stay this close, or whether the pressures of public life and continued proximity to a shared complicated history will eventually create friction, that's genuinely open. Friendships forged in shared pain can be some of the most durable ones. They can also be some of the most fragile, because the moment the healing is complete, sometimes the connection that was built around the wound starts to feel different. Not less real, just different. You can love someone deeply and also quietly wonder what you'd be to each other in a life without the shared scar. For now, though, what Lala seems to be saying, in her own honest, unpolished, I will say the quiet part out loud way, is that Amber matters to her. Not as a symbol. Not as a co-parenting arrangement. As a person she finds beautiful, trusts enough to be vulnerable with, and chooses to keep close in a life she's rebuilding carefully. That's the story underneath the story. And it's worth paying attention to. So what do you think is really at the heart of this connection? Is it pure friendship forged through shared experience? Or do you think there are emotional layers here that even Lala hasn't fully named yet? Drop your thoughts below. Because honestly, this is one of those situations where the audience sees things from the outside that the people living it might still be figuring out. And I want to know where your head is at.